This is Mark from Woolkit, Garrigus. Yeah, Diane's presentation was kind of an eye-opener to me because I really haven't seen anything as far as the Housatonic watershed come across my desk, which I'll have to ask my secretary now. But I've been through this before on the last one and didn't get it in time. So it is a pain if you don't have your stuff updated regulation-wise to the new maps. So
yeah,
I'm
I would
actually
assume that
yeah,
probably
Mr.
what's happening is,
Yeah,
well, no, and Diane is probably dealing with one person per town, and it's someone that's on a list, and it's whoever she has listed as the floodplain coordinator. So Mark, you're a good example of someone who's doing the floodplain management, but not officially. So I would encourage you to reach out to her really quickly. And just kind of
I'm
get
going
right in.
to. I'm going to right after this is.
Great.
This is Bob from Waterbury. I would say this, that Diane has been very, very helpful in the past. When I worked in another community, we actually had to update our floodplain regulations. We did so, but there was a mistake made up at FEMA, and which resulted in a near suspension. And she is a very good go-between between FEMA and the communities, and she was able to resolve it very quickly. So yeah, I would reiterate her words that you do not want to find yourself in a place where you're suspended or being threatened to be suspended.
Agreed. She's a good resource. There's only one of her in the state, and she knows her stuff well. So has there been, speaking of Diane and the map updates, have any of you had any correspondence with her or the discovery process on any of those pesky A zones? So a lot of the towns have the A zones without elevations. Mark, you have some in Woolkit.
Yes.
It'd be good to find out. If they're finally addressing that, because she actually said these words during her presentation. It's time to get free work. It is free to you if you can push the consultant, and it's not us, of course, the FEMA consultants to really address those A zones.
Well, yeah, and that's what I'm going to do when I heard that they would do it, because I have a few spots in town that really need, the lower half of town has to get done going into Waterbury.
Right. Yeah. Cheshire's got a few, probably. Other comments, questions? How are folks doing in the riverine risk zones? Scott, you're Oxford, I think. How are you doing with your homes along the Housay?
Well, we're doing the same thing that always happens. The number of years back when we had a lot of flooding, we were able to try to convince some people to try to sell so we can get them out of those low-lying areas. But the issue always comes in that why should they move? The power station should stop generating power and flooding us, and they don't understand that it's a power dam. It's really not a flood control dam. So we get into those same issues, and we have now more people building in those flood zone areas, and we're trying to stop it and trying to hopefully see if the government at some point will make it easier for the communities to buy these properties and turn it into a passive park or something, and not have all these homes down there that we have to worry about.
Is the barrier the cost share, or is it just the logistics of dealing with FEMA? So the cost share is that the FEMA only pays 75%. So either the town or the resident really contributes the rest.
Correct. The cost share for the town's portion, but also, making the residents understand, now the market is huge, so people want to live by the water. So everyone thinks the property's worth $1 million when it really isn't, and that's the big issue we have.
Okay. Southbury has made traction with acquisitions along the Pomperaug, but I think it's a situation where maybe the the home value situation is a little bit different than Oxford. I'm guessing. I couldn't tell you exactly what, but there's also kind of been more sustained outreach from the town to kind of address those. And I think the flooding there is frankly, been more frequent. So I don't know if anybody from Southbury is on the call. There's a Mark whose last name I don't have. I can't remember. That's Southbury. But other comments on letting people out of floodplains? Any thoughts? Good, bad? Hearing nothing? How about other things to do? Other tools for kind of reducing risk in floodplains or in flood zones, aside from buyouts, setting aside open space, elevating buildings. Anybody have a critical facility in a floodplain?
We do in Oxford.
Can't remember what that is. Which
That's
building?
that's the Center Fire Station, 484 Oxford Road. We actually had hazard mitigation grants right to almost being signed, and for some reason the government decided that it wasn't a worthy project and wouldn't sign off on it. But there's a pond located, a man-made pond made many years ago next to the fire station, and the pipe is too small, and it's tied into all the drainage systems around the fire station, and we're trying to get them to put a box culvert pipe straight across under Route 67 and into the wetland area across the street to spur the water away from it and reduce the flooding. We've built some retaining walls around it and trying to shift the pattern of the water, but we're hoping to get that hazard mitigation grant to get that pipe repaired. Replaced.
Was it an issue of did the timing just run out? There was a point about a year ago where the curtain came down on a lot of grants, or was it a benefit cost analysis problem? What was the issue?
I would have to, I don't know if she's on our grants writer who was in charge of the whole project. I'm not really sure of what the final outcome of why it didn't get funded, but I know we were right at the point where things were supposed to be signed, and then it got shut down.
Okay, well, we'll make sure that we get that at least in the plan, so it keeps you positioned for that. It probably already is in your single jurisdiction plan. We'll make sure it's in the annex.
Okay.
So we've had I think 2 people joined us in the past couple minutes, maybe from the main room. I'm looking at my message. Noah said that there were people that were still in the main room. So we're just having an open discussion. Any comments on flood risk, flooding, new areas of flooding, ideas for flooding? How do you guys all feel about flood control structures? So we don't really make them anymore, right? But anybody have any needs for barriers or walls or berms? Not a popular tool, okay.
David, can I ask a question to the group? What have towns, other towns, communities been doing in terms of regulating drainage resulting from development, be it commercial, residential? What are your town policies, either through ordinance or through local zoning regulations, and in terms of attenuating stormwater drainage impacts?
Anybody? I don't want to pick on.
No takers?
I know Mark Garrigus will answer that. Come on, Mark.
I think is he muted?
Could be.
I think you have to unmute.
Sorry, I had my real job just make a call. So the question was something about drainage? And
I was just curious, throwing out to the group, what towns are doing in terms of attenuating stormwater impacts resulting from construction.
basically make them retain a 100+ year flood on most of the stuff that's there in some way, shape, or form, or slow it down. We haven't had any large development in the last, I'd say 5-6 years of any magnitude. But the ones before that, when Woolkit was growing hard, everybody had some form of retention. Now I'm actually going back and chasing down the maintenance of those ponds, which
Exactly. Yep.
and it falls back on the town, most of it, because it was a drainage right away, and it's kind of slipped back. So I'm going to have some winter work for the guys, I guess, clearing and trimming. But they all held up well, and they all functioning well. We've done them at the expansion at Terrell School. There was a big one, and a smaller one up at
Sorry to the people in my room who were in the middle of a sentence.
Yeah, we had one as well. That was faster than I thought. It was. I was sad to come back.
I'm also sorry. I meant to broadcast a message. I thought it would let me time it down, and then it instantly closed, and I panicked trying to stop it. So I do apologize for the abrupt room closure without even a minute notice there.
Well, we can, Victoria, know when each of us does a report out, we can let the person we can finish their sentence for them or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll go first, I guess, with the flooding. So we had a good discussion. Seemed very brief. We initially were talking about Diane's presentation and the map updates and how it's a great opportunity for people to really dig in and maybe get some of the A zones mapped with an elevation for free. The consultant that FEMA has would be doing that work. And so Mark Aragus from Woolkit, for example, is going to be contacting Diane immediately to see if she knows if some of those A zones are being addressed. We also talked a little bit about acquisitions and barriers to acquiring properties in floodplains, specifically in context to the Housatonic River, but also, the discussion is applicable to all the towns. Talked about a critical facility in Oxford, which was possibly going to be addressed with a culvert replacement under HMGP, which didn't happen. So we want to make sure that gets into the annex. And then we were ending with Waterbury. Bob had asked participants for their thoughts on how other towns are addressing drainage from redevelopment or development projects. What % of the storm has to be retained on site. And Mark Aragus was mid-sentence with what Woolkit is doing. And so it sounds like Woolkit is requiring 100% of large storms to be retained on site. And we didn't have a chance for any other towns to respond, but it seems like something that we could definitely follow up with in future meetings if we have time. And which one of you wants to jump in next?
I can jump in. So we started off our discussion also about floods because I got confused. Apologies. So we, talking about wind, snow, and power outage related hazards. A few people were concerned about snow, but the main issue appeared to be wind related power outages. Towns are able to deal with downed trees on roads and snow and debris and clearing things and maintaining trees on their own. But there's a lot of feedback related to challenges having to work